Have you ever noticed, sometimes it's not that you're not trying hard enough, you're just too scared. You almost never say I want. Instead, you say, it's fine, whatever works, I'll go with what you say. That careful tone of yours has quietly become a part of your everyday life, at work, with friends, even in your family's eyes. You're always the calm, understanding one, the quiet one, the one who never causes trouble, but only you know that isn't kindness. It's fear. Fear of being misunderstood when you speak, fear of seeming rude when you say no. Fear of disappointing someone when you stand your ground, so you keep stepping back, again and again, you stay silent, again and again, until one day, you realize you can't even tell what it is you truly want anymore. You used to have so many ideas, but every time you were about to speak, a voice inside whispered, forget it. What if you say something wrong? You thought that was maturity, that it meant you were being considerate, thoughtful, grown up, but really, you were slowly losing yourself. That morning, the subway was as crowded as always. You stood quietly in the corner, earphones playing a familiar song. Your phone buzzed, a message popped up in the company group chat. Who's taking charge of this afternoon's proposal meeting? The screen stayed silent for a long time. A few people sent emojis, someone made a joke, others pretended not to see. You stared at the screen, your fingers twitched, then stopped. You thought, maybe I could give it a try, but a second later, you told yourself, forget it. What if I mess it up? You sighed softly. The train rushed through the tunnel, your reflection faint on the window, tired and a little unfamiliar. That afternoon, the meeting went on as usual. While the manager was talking, you kept spinning your pen. Then someone said, if only we had someone who could handle the client on their own this time. Your heart skipped. It felt like a tiny string deep inside you was suddenly plucked, but still you didn't look up. Near the end of the meeting, the manager asked, so, who's willing to lead this project? The air froze. You could hear your heartbeat. Inside, a voice whispered, say it, say you want to try, but your throat tightened. Around you, people stared at their screens. The sound of keyboards felt sharp and distant. After a few seconds of silence, the manager smiled and said, all right then, I'll assign someone. You exhaled, a long, quiet breath, but mixed in that breath was a strange kind of bitterness. That night, you stayed late at the office. The only sound was the printer humming in the background. You stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard, but no words came out. That feeling again, wanting to speak, but not daring to, wanting to act, but too afraid. The wind outside rustled the curtains, and suddenly, you just felt tired. Memories came flooding back. That group discussion in college, where you'd prepared so much, but said nothing. That first job presentation, where you could have cleared up the misunderstanding, but you just nodded and took the blame. Even in relationships, you always gave in, always said, it's fine, even when it wasn't. You realized you'd gotten used to stepping back from everything, and that version of you, the one who kept retreating, had grown quieter, blurrier, almost disappearing. The next day, the company announced that the person in charge of the project had suddenly quit. The manager's eyes scanned the room, then stopped on you. You take over, they said. You're the most familiar with the progress. You froze before you could say anything. You heard the next sentence. This time, no one can help you. At that moment, it felt like being pushed onto a stage, the lights too bright, the wind too strong, nowhere left to hide. You nodded. The moment the word okay left your mouth, your heart started pounding. That week, you barely slept. For the first time, you had to make decisions on your own, coordinate with teammates, clients, budgets, designs, everything. Everyone kept asking, so what's next? And you'd smile and say, let me think, but deep down, you just wanted to close your laptop and disappear. There were moments you almost gave up. The proposal got rejected 3 times, the client wasn't satisfied, your team complained, you started to think, maybe I really can't do this, but every time you wanted to say, I can't, you remembered, no one can help you, so you kept going, pushing through the fear. One night, around 2 a.m., you sat alone in the meeting room, files piled on the table, your coffee cold. You opened your laptop, stared at the 12th version of the proposal, and suddenly you wanted to cry, because in that moment, you realized fear doesn't fade by avoiding it. You'd been quietly saying goodbye to that timid version of yourself. A few days later, the proposal was finally done. That morning, you put on a clean shirt and sat down at the meeting table. Your palms were still sweaty, but this time, you didn't back down. You started to speak. Your voice wasn't loud, but it was steady. Halfway through, you noticed the client nodding. Your coworkers were listening closely, and in that moment, you suddenly realized you could do this. You could speak clearly, confidently, without shrinking yourself. When the meeting ended, the client smiled and said, this is good. We'll go with this plan. For 2 seconds, the whole room went silent. Then came the applause. You smiled, not because of success, but because you'd finally done what you'd always been too afraid to do, speak for yourself. After that, something inside you shifted. You weren't suddenly amazing or fearless, you just became more like yourself. You started learning how to express your thoughts in meetings. You stopped agreeing with everything. You started learning how to say no to unreasonable requests and when people misunderstood you. You learned to explain, patiently. You still got scared sometimes, but that fear no longer made you retreat. You finally understood. Courage isn't about waking up one day and feeling strong. It's about taking a step forward, even when your heart is trembling. That evening, as you walked home, the wind felt cool on your face. You looked at the lights along the street and felt a quiet smile rise inside you, not because you'd succeeded, but because for once, you'd done something for yourself. One time, during a late night at work, you spoke up in the team chat, gave a suggestion. Everyone listened. When you finished, someone smiled and said, "You've really changed lately." You laughed softly and said, "I've always wanted to be like this. I just didn't dare before." One day, a new colleague joined the company. She looked a little nervous, just like you used to be. During a coffee break, she asked you quietly, "How do you speak so naturally in meetings? How did you become so confident?" You paused for a second, smiled, and said, "Honestly, I wasn't like this before." Then you told her about the first time you spoke up, how your hands were shaking, how your voice trembled, how your heart almost jumped out of your chest, but you did it anyway. She laughed softly and said, "That sounds just like me." You smiled back. "Then that means you're already halfway there." From that day on, you started to notice something beautiful. Every time you pushed yourself a little, to talk, to try, to step forward, you weren't just getting better at work, you were becoming someone you could finally trust. Not perfect, not fearless, just real. Now, when you pass by a mirror in the morning, you sometimes catch your reflection and pause for a moment.